Hi, welcome to Navigating Grief with Grace, an Enduring by Grace Ministries podcast, where I hope that we can go on the journey of navigating grief together and learning what it means to not only endure but thrive through grief by the grace of God. I am the host and founder of Enduring by Grace Ministries, Elizabeth Christine, and I am so thankful that you are going on this journey with me. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Navigating Grief with Grace. Since this is still in our introductory phase of the podcast, I just wanted this episode to be about me giving my background story on grief and such on my journey, so that you can see that I'm someone you can relate to, that I kind of understand the grieving process, and so that you know that you're not alone. And that's the whole purpose of Enduring by Grace Ministries. So last podcast episode was my goals for this podcast, and to achieve those goals, part of it is sharing my story. So sort of like my testimony. So here's my testimony of how I have navigated grief and just how it all began, sort of. So in September of 2015, my mom passed away. It was a Friday morning, and it's very vivid in my mind. That vividness is never going to leave, and that is forever ingrained in me. Her first signs of getting sick began in July, and it was just a roller coaster of hospitals and just dealing with doctors and so many emotions. The week before she passed, everything kind of went downhill so fast. She was rushed into the ICU, and things just went downhill there. She wasn't conscious that whole week in the ICU, and the doctors just, were preparing us for the worst. And it was hard listening to what they had to say, but also trying to keep our faith, because we do serve a God who heals and still performs miracles. So just being in the hospital room with the at the table with all these doctors, trying to listen to the medical facts, but also believing in God that He has the power to save. It was so difficult, So I was only 20 years old and trying to figure all this out. So I just listened to the doctors and listened to what they had to say, and they have to ask you if you want them to try to revive her if her heart stops. And I had to make that decision, and I said yes, I do, because it felt like I wasn't going to give up on her until her very last breath. And she took it. They tried to, so I wasn't giving up until everything could be done. So that's part of the hospital gist of it, the very beginning. That's the intro before I really had to start grieving. Like I said, it was in September 11th, 2015. Friday morning, we got a phone call that, if we wanted to see her before she goes, to make it down there. And I remember waking up with that phone call, throwing clothes on, calling my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and he met me and my dad at the hospital. It happened so fast, and going in there and then still praying over her, just trying to deal with that, and not really knowing what was going to happen next. Within a half hour to hour, I just remember hearing the code blue go off. Code blue, I believe it's code blue. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just remember that going off, and I just sank to the floor in the hallway, and my heart, I just knew, and it was so hard to experience that. And my dad made me get up off the floor and into the hallway, and husband was there, and it's a blur. That moment was a blur, but I remember certain things vividly. And as I'm grieving, I'm realizing that some memories are blurry. And, going through that, it was kind of traumatizing, 2 years out of high school and trying to adult on my own and dealing with such a big matter. Some memories are kind of blurred for me. So, anyways, we that happened, and then I got called into the hospital room, and they gave me the news that they tried to revive her, and it just didn't happen. And they told me that she had passed, and I am so grateful for the doctors and the staff there, who were there for me during that time. 7 years later, and I still have tears in my eyes as I'm saying this. So just so y'all know, it's grief is hard. So that's why I'm here to relate to you. But like I was saying, I'm so grateful for the people there, because there was a social worker, and when they gave me that news, I sunk to the floor again, and I just started sobbing, and she sat right there on the floor with me. I don't recall her name, but I am so grateful for her. And eventually I got up off the floor, and they were going to clean her up so we could do our final goodbyes and whatnot. So it's so weird, though, from a Christian perspective, I think, looking back on it, to say your final goodbyes just to a body. But I think as humans, that's kind of like our closure. So anyways, I remember going back to the waiting room and waiting for her to get cleaned up, and then going and just having to say goodbye to my mom at 20 years old was really hard, and I can't imagine having to do it before 20. But just, I know so many people get to have more time with their mom, and I know some have less time with them. But this is just my experience that I'm sharing. So feeling so young and having to say goodbye to her in the hospital, and as an only child too, I wanted to make sure she was taken care of, because I didn't want my dad or my Nana to deal with any of that. I felt like, it was her child, it was my responsibility. So after saying my goodbyes alongside my family and husband, I went back into the waiting room and got the bereavement package, and just felt ready to dive into that full force. I got that. I picked myself up and was ready to go. It was a nice distraction from actually grieving. So that day, I came back home. I was home by myself for about, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. My dad just went for a drive. That was how he coped during that time. And I came in, I got the mail, and then I got a phone call from a pastor and his condolences, and saying that my church was there for me. So grateful for my church. And another big part of why I founded this ministry is because I want to be able to financially help those who are grieving, who have to somehow pay for burying their loved one. So the first thing I did was create a GoFundMe. She passed while she was young. She was 40 years old. Had just turned 40, and didn't have life insurance, and she didn't have many assets or whatnot. But funerals and services are so expensive. I didn't know how the heck I was going to do it, but God provided through the generosity of his people, and I am just so forever grateful for that. I remember just tracking the money and seeing how much I needed. I think I kind of lowballed it at first, not realizing how much it was going to be, but funds kept coming in, and it was just amazing. I found a great mortuary service who was really helpful. And I'm just going to throw the name out there if you're by chance listening in your local Mackenzie's Mortuary Services in Long Beach, in California. They were so helpful, and their prices were reasonable compared to other places. So that was a blessing, and they were so kind and gave us all our options. We were cremating her. They gave us different urns and helped us set up services and what services I needed from them. So I was grateful for that, grateful for my church, grateful for my family. I had my in-laws to help me through some of the planning. I know my mother-in-law helped reach out to my church for us, reached out to Floral, and there's just so many different things that go into planning a funeral service that we don't realize until we actually have to go through with it. And I remember talking to my florist. She was like, we have sad flowers now, but I hope the next time we'll do happy flowers very soon. So I had the same florist do my wedding flowers, so we got to do happy flowers. But having to pick out funeral flowers before I got to pick out my wedding day flowers one day, it was definitely, I could say I was definitely feeling bitter towards that fact. But, we got through it, and my church was such a blessing, and got to have her services there. And then my fishing family, I'm so grateful for. We had a boat service, and where we dropped this urn into the water that's made of like salt that dissolved in the water, which I thought was pretty cool. So we had that service, and I'm ranting a little about all those details, but I just want you to know that I relate to all those little details and how you might be feeling through the planning process. It's incredibly hard, but I used it as a coping mechanism, because I distinctly remember after the sea burial getting into the car with my dad and him asking me, how do I feel? I was like, I have no idea how to feel. It's like, how do you feel after, you buried your mom, right? You did all this for her. And, I know my dad hurt as her husband, so I took up that role, and I told him, I don't know. And he's told me that I'm the strongest person that he knows, but it was because of them. They raised me to be who I am. And by God's grace, I was able to endure it, hence enduring by Grace Ministries. But asking me how I felt, there was just so much of a emptiness in that moment, and I don't know what the heck to do from now on, sort of thing. Because in the beginning, like the day she passed, I had phone calls asking if I was okay. I had people stopping by. My aunt and my uncle brought over a bunch of junk food, making sure that I was going to eat something, ice cream, But after that, you're left to pick up the pieces, and you're expected to somehow return back to normal, so to say, go back to whatever your new normal is supposed to be. And it was a hard transition. Growing up in the house as an only child with both my parents, it was left just me and my dad, so it was really weird to still continue. The house felt very empty. It was very quiet, and me and my dad were just picking up the pieces after she had passed, so it was hard to move forward, just in daily activities and major life. Every new thing I did, any old thing, it always reminded me of her. And I had to think of, I didn't have my driver's license yet, and having to achieve that without her, of enrolling in school again was another thing I had to do without her, and At the time that she passed, I was a girlfriend to my husband, and trying to have a relationship and yet feel so sad and so broken was really hard. And I sought my happiness in him and things that he did to make me happy, and that wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy for him, for us. That was a lot of pressure to put on him. And I think we broke up 2 years after she passed. It was in 2018, I believe, that we ended up parting ways. And really, I'm so grateful for that, because I got to grow as my own person during that time without the distractions of, I don't know, having to have another relationship, but really focusing on my relationship with God. But going through the motions after the funeral, after the services, is a really difficult thing, because you feel like everyone's there to support you in those beginning moments, and then you don't know how to be supported or support yourself in the aftermath. So that's why I feel this ministry is really important, because I want to be there to support you in the aftermath of dealing with picking up the pieces, because I had to pick up those pieces at a young adult age. And I'm so grateful for those who supported me along the way. My church, my family, we went through this all together. And I couldn't have done it without the grace of God, because He truly does give us a peace that surpasses all understanding. I'm going to close this soon, because I don't want this podcast to run super long and drag on. But the next thing I want to cover is how grief impacted my relationship with God, because I was not happy, that's for sure. Felt anger towards God, and how could He do this? Why didn't He answer my prayers? He could have healed her. He raised Christ from the dead, Lazarus, he's still healing people today. So why didn't He heal my mom here on earth? Why did her healing have to come from going to heaven? So I dealt with doubts and whatnot. So that's something I want to cover in the next podcast, which will be my journey of grief and doubt in my relationship with God and how I coped with that. But I hope that this podcast episode served the purpose of me being relatable, even 7 years later. Still dealing with some of the hurt. Like, it's still there. It doesn't go away completely. You're always going to miss your loved one who entered heaven before you. It's not going to be sunshine and roses every day, even after you're like, oh, I feel good about it. You're going to have your days. It's going to hurt some days when you go through the big moments. Like, planning my wedding was really hard. Graduating with my bachelor's degree was really hard. I sat down on the couch after I submitted my last assignment and just started crying, because I completed this, but I didn't have my mom there with me. But I remember attending one semester of school, college, while she was alive, and she was like my little college girl. She was so proud, and just saying, Mom, I did it. But not having her with me was really hard. So I hope that I can be someone you can relate to, someone that you feel comfortable reaching out to through this ministry. I hope you reach out to me and know that you are not alone when you go through these moments in life. That I'm here. I understand what you're going through. God's there, and He's going to hold you along the way, even when it feels like He may have abandoned you. He did not. He is there to carry you through it all. And so I pray that this episode had been helpful. I hope it provides some hope, because even though I'm crying now, it does get better, so to say. People get, oh, time, it gets easier. You grieve differently. It's not gonna be, you're not gonna be a walking zombie after grieving forever. That's the hope I provide to give you, that God and me are on your side. This ministry is here to benefit you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. God bless y'all. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Navigating Grief with Grace. I am so honored that you would go on this journey with me, and I'm honored that you trust me to be on this journey with you. If you would like to expand Enduring by Grace Ministries outreach, and you would like to contribute to the mission of providing hope to the hurting with emphasis on those who are grieving, you can go to enduringbygrace.org, and there you can donate financially, and you can also donate by buying merchandise as well if you want a little something for yourself to help grow the ministry and advertise, if you would. So you can go to enduringbygrace.org, and there you will find more about the mission of Enduring by Grace, as well as how to donate and all the different ways that we provide donations through. Also, if you are just hurting and you need someone to walk with you and relate to, please visit enduringbygrace.org, and you can contact me for prayer requests, and you can just communicate with me through there, through our Instagram and Facebook as well. Just enduringbygrace.org is a place of resources for you that I hope you will utilize, and I hope that I will just continue to grow it, and that more and more people can gain the hope that they are so desperately seeking, and that God so desperately wants everyone to have the hope of salvation, the hope that the cross that took our hurts and our hang-ups, and that God can truly use us still, even when we feel unusable and broken. So I pray that this podcast has been beneficial to you thus far, and that you would just continue to go on this journey with us. And again, visit enduringbygrace.org to learn how you can partner with us and how you can utilize this ministry. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Navigating Grief with Grace. I am so honored that you would go on this journey with me, and I'm honored that you trust me to be on this journey with you. If you would like to expand Enduring by Grace Ministries outreach, and you would like to contribute to the mission of providing hope to the hurting with emphasis on those who are grieving, you can go to enduringbygrace.org, and there you can donate financially, and you can also donate by buying merchandise as well if you want a little something for yourself to help grow the ministry and advertise if you would. So you can go to enduringbygrace.org, and there you will find more about the mission of Enduring by Grace, as well as how to donate and all the different ways that we provide donations through. Also, if you are just hurting and you need someone to walk with you and relate to, please visit enduringbygrace.org, and you can contact me for prayer requests, and you can just communicate with me through there, through our Instagram and Facebook as well. Just enduringbygrace.org is a place of resources for you that I hope you will utilize, and I hope that I will just continue to grow it, and that more and more people can gain the hope that they are so desperately seeking, and that God so desperately wants everyone to have the hope of salvation, the hope that the cross that took our hurts and our hang-ups, and that God can truly use us still, even when we feel unusable and broken. So I pray that this podcast has been beneficial to you thus far, and that you would just continue to go on this journey with us. And again, visit enduringbygrace.org to learn how you can partner with us and how you can utilize this ministry.